Thank you all for coming in today. This is our third masterclass. It's a series we're really excited to continue to develop and build. Our goal with this series is really to help bring topics to you that hopefully you can learn from and whether that in best practices across your operations. And so if you missed the first two master classes that we've hosted, we did one on the first two were on running, creating and developing preventive maintenance plans across your facilities. Those are available to watch on our YouTube page as well as in our community. I highly encourage you to check those out if you're interested. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about how to boost OEE with machine connectivity. I'm really excited to share our special guest with you all today. We'll kind of dig into that. This is being recorded, so if at any point you want to go back and rewatch part of it or share this, or you can't stay the whole time, we'll be able to you'll be able to catch up afterwards. So without further ado, kind of go ahead and move things forward here. So that's it's probably better if I start here at the beginning of the presentation. Awesome. So yes, you will be getting a recording of this by November 18th, so stay tuned. If you have any questions throughout the webinar here, we do have a lot of folks here on the MaintainX side who are answering questions. So even if they're related to the product or they're related to something that's tangential, shoot those out into the chat or the Q&A panel you see on Zoom, and we'll be answering those throughout the conversation. Depending on how time works, we may open it up to Q&A. We're going to try to open it up as well to some Q&A from the audience as well here with our guests. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nick Haase. I'm one of the co-founders here at MaintainX. I work with a lot of our customers across the board in terms of helping them understand how to do everything from the basics of getting over that hurdle of change management, getting adoption, getting buy-in across your organization, all the way through to some of those bigger strategic goals about where you want to be in 2030 and beyond. So I'm also leading our MaintainX community. If you haven't checked that out yet, definitely take a look at it. We're really excited to keep continuing to grow that. We've got a lot of fun initiatives that are coming up through for that as well. Um, so stay tuned and sign in if you're sign up if you haven't yet done so. Moving on, happy to introduce to you all Mike Matthews from TE Connectivity. And Mike, I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to you to let you give a little bit of a background on yourself and maybe a little bit on TE Connectivity so folks can get an idea of what you all do there.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Mike Matthews. I've been employed here at T Connectivity. Going into my 35th year being here in the facility. I've started off in maintenance. It's always been my line of work, and have worked up through the process now to where I'm actually managing both facilities and operational sides of the building. We're a expanding company. We're looking to move MaintainX out into some other areas of our or other segments of our business. We're really, like just what it says up there, we're super hyper focused on the OEE end and machine connectivity. For us, we're really being pushed from a global standpoint for resource management, which is water, electricity, anything that we could track, that we could actually see anomalies in. So so far, using this going into my second year, utilizing MaintainX, I see all these possibilities, and they're right there at our fingertips. We're working actively right now, building a bridge over from some OEE that we're already capturing in our equipment over into MaintainX, to trigger work orders for us when machines go down, or like we have water leaks that nobody's aware of. We want to be able to locate those very quickly and be able to assess them.
Fantastic. Yeah, so Mike is we're really excited to have you here today, Mike. Thanks so much for being here because this guy has a wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience, and is really going, walking the walk that I think a lot of folks that I talk to every day are trying to figure out how to kind of move along in that journey and how to articulate the value of that to folks across the board, and get buy-in from stakeholders up and up and down the chain of command there. And so we're going to have our goal here today is to kind of cover, uh, a lot of that terrain with Mike, walk through that journey. And so, it's really excited to kind of kick things off, and we'll dive straight into the Q&A here. And I'll stop sharing that slide for now and kick things off. So I guess, Mike, you're talking about, machine connectivity. What is that? What is it that really got you excited about the concept of it? Or even to take a step back, how would you maybe talk about machine connectivity to somebody who's relatively new to the industry or still trying to understand what do you mean when you say machine connectivity? How would you kind of, paint the picture of what that is and to begin with?
Okay, and for us, we're just trying to optimize our equipment. We want to know exactly what the issues are, and make sure that we have a very fast response to those activities that we see that come to data that we get. Just a small example because we're new in this too. We've had some Hydra systems in the past, but they always seem to fail. And if you don't have the really high level IT support, then you struggle to keep those type robust systems up and running. So you in finding this in MaintainX and seeing the simplicity of what we can actually capture and have it given to us in real time as it's really happening is what really just drew me to this software when I was looking at it early on to have that ability to be able to do that. And I'm seeing those realities now because even though, like you said, we're just getting our feet wet, um,
Hmm.
but I'm already tracking water usage. I'm tracking our gas utilization. I've set up triggers that that would alert me if something is going past a borderline or a threshold that we didn't have before. In other words, if I had a water valve that got hung open on our cooling tower system and we didn't know anything about it, and then I wasted 200,000 gallons of water. That can't happen anymore
Right.
because it's going to alert me in real time. It said, hey, you've got an issue. You've surpassed this threshold that I say we will not use in a 24-hour period. So that has been really eye-opening that it has that ability to do that.
So this connectivity piece is not just about, you know, checking a box on an aspirational vision board to say we're doing something smart. Because you've tried that, these initiatives have failed in the past. And what was it that maybe didn't work before? Was it were you not able to capture the data off your machines, or was it just not being able to close that loop with creating action behind it?
I
Um,
think Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It was not creating actions behind it. You had the data and it was over there somewhere and nobody was looking at it. Nobody's really getting that real live alert, for an action on that. And if somebody was reviewing it, yeah, they saw it 3 weeks later. Oh my gosh, this happened. And it was not like real time. Like we're seeing things right now, even in the OEE, I'll give you an example of that we have on some of our molders that, it could be as simple as the operator doesn't have material or they don't have boxes or they have a staff shortage or they had to go to lunch or they had whatever the reason is this is getting that in real time and our planning department our other level higher level managers all have access to see this what's going on the critical piece for me that I'm rolling into this is even through that same system that I need a call for maintenance and then I have a dedicated flag for that particular piece of equipment that any maintenance need that it has, then it will flag me and send out a work order immediately to let my staff know that we have a machine down.
So you're getting that evolution for you all, like in that, and which I think is great. And just to kind of even go a step back, because I think this sort of helps paint the picture of that evolution and that journey for you all. When those first systems failed, where did that kind of leave everyone that maybe thought it was a good idea? Like what was the morale around that specific issue like at that time when you had to kind of, admit defeat or say this wasn't working? Did that kind of color folks' opinion on how, was it not for you guys, or you just didn't know how to approach it? Was it easy to identify kind of where the missing link was at the time?
Um, well, like I said, a lot of it comes from just having the IC support. When we had failures internally with the controls in the system, that we didn't have anybody that could work through that processes for us to figure out, hey, what's going on? Why are we not receiving the data anymore? And then I think it just got given up on.
Yeah.
There's another little system that's called Spark. I don't know if you've heard about it before, and there's a lot of industries that are using that. But even with that as well, I just felt like a lot of times because you didn't have no way to relay this to the maintenance department. You didn't have no way to relay this to planning. You didn't have, it was just kind of, it was going into a data hole, so to speak. And hopefully somebody's looking at it to try to figure out what the problems and issues are. Whereas this is giving us a real-time look with everybody at the same time.
Love that. So how was that kind of, so you had folks that kind of were frustrated that IT didn't wasn't supporting there and to the degree that you maybe needed it to really get that kicked off. What was it about this time around that kind of gave you a new sense of motivation or, maybe optimism that this approach that you're taking today would work? What was that kind of, what did you see and how did you, yeah, we'll start with that. What was that moment like for you?
Yeah, like I said, when I was doing reviews, I was trying to figure out, what CMMS software that I was going to choose to go with. And really it was in the very beginning, because I didn't know MaintainX. I didn't know that it had the abilities to do some of the things that I would like to do.
Hmm.
I was really looking at it in the beginning as I needed a general straightforward CMMS system that was easy to operate, that captured all of my inventory spare parts, all my equipment data, for breakdowns, PMs. That was my goal, and I was looking out, and I actually reviewed like 4 or 5 different softwares. And when I finally got to the MaintainX software, I was seeing things and I was like, oh my gosh, no, this is exactly what I want to do. This is exactly what I want to do. And when I actually did, the trials, I did trials on some other softwares too. And I just found MaintainX so much more easier to use. And that's what I wanted to put into the hands of my guys. That it, I've always said that data that you do not collect is data that you'll never have. And that's what happens in the maintenance world. It happens every day in every plant across this nation and around the world. There's so many things that we miss just because it wasn't easy or it was difficult. And if I have to go do this and I have to log in here and I have to go to this Excel spreadsheet and I have to put this data, you're never going to get it. So
Yeah.
you're always operating kind of blind. And that's one of the things I say that I realized early on when I was going through the trial in there, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, looks just seeing how you could track and trend in the reports and see the data on what you spent on this particular piece of equipment. How much time did you spend on that piece of equipment? That's what grabbed my attention to start with. And then that's when I started learning more about the possibilities of being able to do triggers to work orders in an OEE type environment where we're gathering data from equipment. So that's when I immediately started working on that.
It's what's great, or it's really interesting. I would call out about the way you thought about this was, I met a lot of really, really smart folks who think about solving that problem in the opposite way, where they go and they figure out how are we going to build out this. How are we going to build all this connectivity system out? How are we going to set up this network and this OT data stack? And then we'll figure out how to get it to the hands of the end users later. And you kind of went about that from the opposite direction to say, hey, how can we get that? How can we start capturing data simply with the guys on the, they're actually turning the wrench, they're out on the front line, and go build from there. And so I think that that's worth kind of calling out because it kind of leads into this sort of next segment of you're capturing data, you're building that out. What was and you're capturing that data. And so what role does that data, I guess, play in helping you improve OEE? And how are you able to sort of start making sure that that data is actionable and that you're capturing the right data from your team?
Yeah, I can, well, for me personally, in reviewing the data and looking in MaintainX, I have just clear visibility. I have clear visibility at all times what's happening within the plan. And I have the ability to go see anomalies, and when I see something that's that's happening over and over and again, and that's one of the goals that I had, was to have a software that I could move my team into a predictive state.
Yeah.
And now that I have this tracking and I have this traceability and then I have that alignment to where I can build out these predictive things that says, an example of one scenario that I had, and it shut us down for about 2 weeks, but it was one of those things where you're working toward this and you don't know when your first failure is going to come. And you're doing all the things right, but this was happened to be on a actual dryer, that the desiccant bed on it, they told us that we could probably get 5 to 6 years out of the desiccant bed, which it did not make that. So, but unfortunately, we only made it 4 years on that desiccant bed, and it wound up costing us almost 2 weeks of downtime to get that bed back in here and to get it installed in the machine and get the process back running. So now we're preemptively, predictively, because we can have a work order in place that's going to let us know when we reach that 3.5 year mark, that's going to be ordered, that's going to be on the way, and it's going to be placed in there before we reach the 4 years.
Yeah.
Because he has already showed us we cannot get but more than 4 years out of this device.
Yeah. Can't be caught, empty-handed there when that's a critical asset, keeping your line running. Um, and so I think one thing I want to kind of touch on too that I think is interesting about the way you've approached, this setting this up is, some folks will say, I want to get to this place where we can have this machine connectivity. I want to get to this place where we can start to capture this data, but we're waiting on IT. We're waiting to get all these things set up and integrated. You didn't wait to get anything, connected from a sensor IoT perspective, right? You went ahead and had your team start building that out, kind of manually. You want to speak to sort of how you all started to approach that connectivity component with MaintainX, to start to build out that process without that IT involvement.
Yeah, that's the first thing I went and looked at. I said, okay, what can we do from a cellular based platform? What can we do where we don't have to directly tie into our network? Because that is one of the, we have a very high standard around our network protocol here at
Mhm.
the facility. So we said, okay, or let's see what can we do without doing that intrusion into the network. So that's one of the things that I found, that had this capability, that actually works through a cellular service, that also talks to the cloud. And therefore, by being able to send this data out to the cloud, that's the piece that I'm working on now. And MaintainX is working with me on that as well, with the other counterpart that has the device that's actually claiming or gathering the OEE data.
Yeah.
So once and we're operating now, we're collecting OEE on our injection molders, and we're just looking at that tie-in piece at this point,
Right.
which it seems to be going great. But my biggest part that I'm wanting out of this is for machine maintenance issues for me personally. But the OEE is also gaining a lot of other data, that's for, like I said, for planning, customer service, all the other departments that are affected in that, about how well that piece of equipment is operating on our floor. Are they going to meet their customer supply needs? Or do we have the materials in place to make sure that the equipment is efficient? Making sure it's staffed properly with the supervisors, it kind of brings everybody to the table when you have OEE working properly.
Yeah, it's a metric everyone get behind, because it's sort of the team effort metric above all else, right? And just to sort of like clarify here and kind of help make it clear to folks that are listening here. So you're on the journey right now to get a direct sensor IoT IT connection to MaintainX, so that's actually coming automatically. But today your meters that you're using to track the machine connectivity and the meters that are being tracked within MaintainX, that's being entered manually by your team, right?
That's correct.
They're
That's
entering, they're entering that data on manual meters that are a function of daily or multiple times a day work orders. Is that how it's working?
We're taking daily readings. It's a 24-hour reading, that we take once a day. So we're monitoring our water use from day to day, as well as the gas. We take a one gas reading a day. so that we can see that. One for the water is the most interesting for me that we capture this data because it shows the trending in the trending chart that we can kind of look at based off rated, if we've had rainfall, how hot was it that day? And I'm actually starting to see the evaporation rates that are happening in the tower. So yeah, that's all done manually right now, but the goal is to have all that. Like I said, I'm looking at the cellular part now to get these IoT meters in there that would be taking these measurements for me automatically 7 days a week.
Yeah, that's sort of the like a perfect kind of next step to it, right? Is and so have you been able, has that has the fact that you've been able to start capturing some of that manually and you're able to start building out that story and also, be able to show the opportunity to create, actions based on those readings, does that help build the business case for that next step that you want to take in that
Oh,
investment?
absolutely. Yeah. As I said, there's a big push from the environmental standpoint, globally with our company, for conservation and resources.
Hmm.
So it's a very big push, to get this realized, and I'm already seeing things. Like I said, if I have an anomaly or something happens with the towers and we spring a leak or whatever, then it executes that work order. And it's actually already executed a few work orders for us where the guys were able to catch it very quickly. We had a float that got hung in a tower and we were just pouring water down to the drain. Normally that could have went on for 3 or 4 days and nobody realized it.
Yeah. So it's supporting those EHS initiatives that, a lot of teams have corporate, mandates they have directives to try to be more mindful there or produce direct results. So you're able to sort of, hit two birds with one stone, so to speak, as you're still supporting your reliability and your OEE objectives while also, helping hit that EHS, improve that EHS metric too.
Yep.
And so that kind of leads me to this next question. You're kind of touching on it, but I think it's worth kind of double down and doing a little bit of a double down on is, when is a company ready? We get a question a lot. When is it ready to incorporate machine connectivity into its processes? Your answer really was not, I think, different than what a lot of folks would be. A lot of folks would say when they can get that OT or IT buy-in to build that IT, those sensors and connect them to the machines. Your perspective was different because you didn't have that and you still were able to kind of get that started. So what was it that made you feel ready to do that?
Um, like I said, I wanted something that was very simple and easy to use for my maintenance guys. I wanted something that was uh, pretty much what I'd call as a plug and play system. That we didn't have to rely on a lot of support, to get us operational system up and running. And like I said, that's when I went out looking for options to see what was out there. And I actually had somebody introduce to me to this product that we've got on our injection molders now. And it just found that, my gosh, this is one of the simplest solutions I have ever seen for OEE. And it is so simple to put on your equipment. So I would say just simplicity.
Love that. So if you're now, how are you maybe measuring or tracking success with either yourself, your team, or leadership as well? Like, what are some of the KPIs or metrics that you're sharing to sort of say we're getting better or we're doing worse? How do you currently kind of look at that today?
I do that with reports, basically through my plant manager, where we review and look at, our wins and our losses, being able to track the equipment's mean time to repair, and mean time between failures, so that we can actually see where we're losing
Yeah.
and where we're winning. So that's been really great. I run monthly reports. I actually share some reports out to the entire plant because that's another thing that a lot of times in the maintenance world, people that realize actually how much work is actually going on around them until they see it. And then they start to realize, oh my gosh, this team they just went through 800 something work orders in the past month. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, these guys were really busy.
So before you were using MaintainX, how were those conversations before? Were you tracking this through spreadsheets or some just Yeah.
Yes, I was doing everything tracking in Excel. I had spreadsheets built out that even where I could track the MTTR and the MTBF. But the problem with that is I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. The data you don't get is the data you never have. And I just felt like all the time I said, well, this is not real. This is not real, because I would know that there were situations or things where I knew machines were down, but the guys didn't get it recorded and I didn't get the data into the spreadsheet. So, I never felt comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I will say about this now that I feel real comfortable about it because the guys are giving me the data and they don't even realize it.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. They're doing the work. They're doing the work. They have they're issuing parts. They're doing all this work. It's automatically they're doing it, but I'm getting that data and it's not lost. So for me, that was a win-win-win.
So how's that conversation changed in those meetings now when, from the spreadsheet days to now that you can pull up, your dashboards or, prepare some reports in advance? Is that helping, how is that changing your role as a reliability leader in terms of maybe the impact it's having with your seat at the table or helping you advocate for the needs of your team and what does that kind of look like?
Absolutely. Like I said, I'll go back to, just asset reliability. I have a really good picture now when, if we're struggling and we can't, and I have a way to show proof of that.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was kind of hard because if I wasn't getting all the data that was showing how bad we were losing on that piece of equipment. And now I actually have concrete that I can just show them, say, hey, I know, look, here's the situation. Here's what I'm spending. This is the amount of downtime that we're having. This is the parts I've went through. This, and they see it. And when they see those numbers and they'll realize and they say, oh yeah, this makes no sense. Which makes it easier for me to get equipment replacement.
Mhm.
Or if it's not equipment replacement, to get in the right resources to get a piece of equipment where it should be, to maintain its efficiency.
So you're able to sort of cut that line of kind of, let maybe there's less skepticism around the data, and you're able to sort of go straight to solution oriented conversations that are saying, hey, here's the problem, and whether we have the budget or resources to support the ideal solution today is maybe, doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a blank check for everything you need, but at least you can have a little bit of a clearer-eyed conversation around where the issues are and get to the root cause. Is that fair?
Yep, that's fair. That's what I said. It just makes it a lot clearer. And that they know that, the risks that are involved because I have proof to show, the amounts of downtime that we've suffered and the amounts of money that we're spending on it. And if we're just going into this endless hole in something that we see is not going to improve, it just gives them a more confidence in, what we need to do going forward.
Makes a lot of sense. What would you think about like how do you think about getting through some of those organizational bottlenecks that are at the beginning, maybe people who are resistant to the change or digitization in general? Did you overcome any friction from like a change management standpoint, or what was that process like from your point of view?
I think it was actually relatively easy. Because like even when I went out to Juarez, this is another plant that we have in Mexico. Yeah, after I was able to show them just all the abilities that MaintainX had, and I'll highlight something else on here is for me that has been one of the invaluable parts of that is with me having some responsibilities for the Juarez facility also, that I could very easily go into their site and I could look at their equipment that's down, what's in process, what's on hold, to give me a better idea. So when I'm not there in the plant visiting, that I can still have a view of the plant and what's going on and what's being worked on, what's down. So having that enterprise, system like we have to be able to do that. We do share similar equipment.
Mhm.
It allows me to go in and look at their inventory. They have inventory that is directly related to some things that we have. So
Yeah.
I think when I'm showing this to even my other counterparts across the world. I think they're also seeing that when I've given them, because I've had a lot of my counterparts, want to see the system. When they heard, oh, Mike's, using MaintainX, and everybody wanted, hey, what's going on? What's MaintainX? It was the buzzword. I had a lot of people that wanted to review and see, and I'd share my screen with them and show them just the capabilities, and that's why there was such a huge interest. That's why I said I don't think it almost sells itself when somebody sees it.
Yeah. And I think that's so intimidating for folks who maybe have experience with some of the solutions that are a little bit, from the previous generation of software and maybe a little less user friendly. So that it's kind of hard to explain that gap until you see it sometimes. Um, Something that I want to kind of circle back to too that I think is important to note is, a lot of folks have PLCs and other things connected to their equipment, and some of those are, more modern than others. Some of their machines have different various states of it. With your approach to it today, with the manual meters, it wasn't, the you were able to kind of adapt. You're able to adapt to any equipment. It doesn't matter if it's legacy or not, right?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think,
the only thing that the approach that I'm working on and what I'm using is there's just one key component that I need to know, and is I need to know a part number,
yeah.
and I need to know what that cycle time is for that part number on a healthy operational machine. I just need to know what that cycle time is. And if I'm operating anywhere outside of that cycle time, then I am not being efficient. So if they shut the machine down or they're doing something outside of the machine's not running, they have to put in a code, or it's not a code. They have a selector. It could be like I said, I can call out on materials, lack of staff shortage, um, uh, no orders planned. We have several ones we've set up that tells us that immediately a mold change. If they're going into a mold change, they got to put that in there. It's a mold change.
Hmm.
That's what accounts for that time. That's not allowed in, because at that point you're not being efficient. So
Right.
you have to have a reason code in there. So that's just how we're tracking our OEE.
Makes a lot of sense. And we had some questions earlier on like what is OEE? Or how do people, maybe how do they maybe misunderstand it? Some places think of it differently than others, or how is that something? How do you explain the concept of OEE being your North Star metric to somebody who's maybe new to your facility or um, not as familiar with uh, what y'all are doing? How do you kind of break it down to help them understand what the value of it is? And
Yeah,
um,
value of the OEE. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
yeah, just OEE as a metric.
So yeah, so there's several different parts of that, that what's deriving your OEE. One is going to be like the equipment's like the equipment cycle time, which would be for its efficiency, how fast you are actually turning parts out. Then you have the quality sector of that you have to for those numbers. If you're having bad parts, it also affects your efficiency. And then again, I can go through the gambit of them, staff shortage, lack of materials, planning didn't get the order to the machine. It's just everything that can affect that efficiency to drop it down. So that's kind of how we explain it. If somebody was coming in wanting to know, okay, what is that? What is OEE? It's our overall equipment efficiency. And we're trying to track and monitor when the machine's available, when it's not available. And what that helps with us is also for our planning folks. They can kind of make decisions based off the efficiency of the equipment and how well we're running.
Mhm.
And they can kind of, look and say, okay, what's my balance? How many work orders can I release to this machine? If I'm only running a 60% OEE, I'm probably not going to be able to get this order because they already know what the cycle rates are for that particular part of that machine. So, like I said, the OEE, it actually affects everyone.
Yeah. So it's basically your operational health, report card. And from there you can figure out where it's, why you're scoring high or low each day or each month. But that's sort of the great way to keep everybody with a good baseline understanding of a metric that everyone can align on being important. Because there's so many variables that change. You can't go on throughput alone or on the value of the product alone because that could change depending on all sorts of factors. So pushing this much money worth of product off the line one month and this month off the next month isn't necessarily a fair way to evaluate the performance of the operation, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's great. So when you think about like how do you see the role of operators and technicians evolving and changing as we get deeper into a machine connectivity world? What is that? What do you think that looks like? Um, thinking about little of a future projections here.
Yeah, you talking about as far as the operators' adaptability in this system, or I,
Just as we get closer to the metal on these machines, and maybe as we connect the sensors so that we're getting this data in real time and they're not having to manually input it, where do you see and so we have this sort of visibility into the operation that's kind of streamlined through this automated system. How do you think that's going to change the role of the operators and the technicians from folks who don't have to be really hyper observant and sensitive to a lot of factors. Uh, and now they maybe don't have to be as in tune with those things because they're automatically being fed into a system like MaintainX, which is, monitoring it for any irregular or anomalies that need to be actioned on.
as I was trying to think of how to word this. As far as the operators concerned, they're not really in the type of equipment we have. Now, I do have processes that I will be putting in. That's going to be a major deal for them because there is a lot of things that they're having to monitor on this particular machine, and it's a big compound mixing machine, and they have a lot of variables they have to monitor and constantly see that this is right and this is right and that's right. Where I do see the future in that, where that we can take that away. We can actually be monitoring these things for them and give alerts if there was something, that's out of line, that's not where it's supposed to be. I do have a lot of pumps and things like that that I eventually want to get to the vibration sensors on,
Mhm.
just so we can have that data report on each one of those pumps so we can kind of monitor and see, if we had a bearing failure, approaching on us that where we need to change that before, it actually happens. But as far as the generalized area for operators within the plant, there's not a lot of things that they particularly have to pay real close attention to because we do have fully automatic equipment. I mean, basically what they're doing is just they're just taking parts out of a batch that it spits it out of the machine, and they may have to do a couple little things to it to get it before it's a finished good to throw it into a box. So um, like I said, it's just certain operations that I see that it will be a big value add for the operator where they don't have to be so in tune looking at this specific thing to make sure it's exactly right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And as I think about kind of somebody in your shoes, maybe a year or two ago, who's there today, and they're thinking, I could measure 100 things today that, whether it's manually with meters, I could connect it. I'm sure you have hundreds of things that you can measure too, but you landed on a couple of core kind of components, elements to start with the idea that you'll build out from there. But how did you prioritize that? What was sort of the strategy and thinking behind that? The narrowing it down and then what you specifically narrowed it down to.
Well, like I said, my first thought out of the gate was water. I was like, I was getting beat up all the time about our water usage, and
Yeah.
that was actually my very first one, and that's the one that I'm putting a lot of emphasis on right now. But I wanted to be able to, actually dissect the plant. I wanted to be able to break it down and into a lot of several different areas from the time I get it from the city to the time it comes into the building to the time it goes to my utility room, what goes into I want meters all over this plant just so I can prove where the water's going. Because a lot of times, until they just say, "Oh my gosh, look how much water you're using," but I can't tell them where. I mean, I know that the cooling tower is the big one, but that was the one that really drove me first to say, "Hey, I got to get some automated situation in here where I can actually be taking these meters constantly reading, and spread them out across the entire plant."
It makes a ton of sense. And were you feeling, you say you were getting beat up on the water. Is that just a cost? I mean, obviously it's expensive when that's running, but is it also the EHS folks that are coming in and saying, hey, this is not a good look. We got to fix this one, even if it was free.
Yeah, it has a little bit of both. It
Yeah.
was more so from it was more from the environmental side. we live in a water stressed region. And because we're a water stressed region, of course, they want you to make sure that you're doing everything possible to minimize as much water usage as you can. So for me, it's really a proof that we're not wasting water. I think sometimes that they kind of get the sense that, if you're not here at this facility, they think we're just running water down drains everywhere, and that's not the truth. It's just we do have a three-cell tower here that evaporates a tremendous amount of water. So that's why we do have high water use rates. But with that said, and being able to collect this data and showing how much water that's evaporating through the tower leads me more into the possibility of getting money approved to move to a different style tower that's environmentally friendly, that we can condensate the water right back into the tower as an exchange loop. So this is another piece that will help me sell that to get to that point.
Which I think is important to understand. Like, there's, a lot of corporate, and a lot of folks we talk in the corporate world, they may not have all the budget they need to do, some of the reliability oriented things that they'd like to do, or they have to build it in stages. But there may be this bucket over here of EHS budget to support some of those objectives. So if there's an opportunity to help maybe, dip into that, you know, that channel and say, hey, here's something that can help both parties win. Um, and now that you have the data to support that, you're able to advocate for a solution that's going to be a win-win for both parties there, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. What do you think are kind of what would be your hopes or expectations and around where you see tools like this evolving over the coming years? And what are your thoughts on maybe AI being involved and helping make things better or worse, or probably hopefully not worse, but what are you thinking is going to be the next big step for you and your in the ecosystem overall?
Yeah, I just, I'm just looking forward to, you know, the as far as our future is the machine connectivity and on and every piece of equipment in this facility. That's, I know I've got a long road to go down, but we're going to be acting on it very aggressively. Uh,
Hmm.
I just, for the years to come, that's what I say is, and just keep building. We've already come a long way in MaintainX as far as from where we started, as far as how comfortable my team is with using MaintainX. And I know that's only going to further strengthen. It's just because of the simplicity of its use. Um, but I would say that the machine connectivity is the biggest goal that I have over the next few years, is to get everything in this plant. And I'm including vibration sensors, temperature meters, the full gambit to be able to
Awesome.
collect data.
I'd love that you open it up to some questions from the audience here, and I got one from Claudio. It says, on the cooling tower, you use a water meter to measure your gallons per minute. What about VFD drives, closed loop to adjust the load?
Yes, we are doing some of that work now as well.
Hmm.
We're actually looking at dialing back things. I think if I'm understanding this question correctly, because all of our drives are VFD drives on for our cooling tower.
Okay.
So we have made adjustments to that. We really see more of that on the electrical side of things versus actual water usage.
That makes sense. Um, let's see. Any other questions here from the audience that I want to ask out? Otherwise, got a couple extra I'd love to toss your way as well, but I'll give folks a chance to throw a few out as well. So, hang tight here. See if any come through. Um, you gonna look now. another one, I guess, like how did you overcome working with your IT to work, even get something like MaintainX to set up? Was this something that you had a mandate to solve, so, to bring a solution in and you got that approved in advance, or did you go hunt this down yourself and say, hey, I've got a problem I'd like to fix, and you went and looked for solutions? What was that kind of process like internally, and how did you navigate that?
We just did our SAP implementation this past year, and it actually started a year before when we started planning for SAP implementation. So when I was, like I said, even the SAP module has a PM module that's attached to SAP. And I was kind of being pushed that direction a little bit, but I did a follow up with some of my counterparts that had already went that route. And when I spoke to them about that, they were just very negative. They were just like,
Not giving you a
Mike,
lot of confidence that was going to work.
yeah, Mike, don't do that. I mean, that was kind of feedback I was getting from it. And I was like, you know what? I just don't want to push something through to fail. And if I'm hearing my counterparts already telling me this, that, oh, no, this is, don't do that. So that's when I went and actually talked to my management. I said, hey, look, here's the situation. This is what, the feedback I'm hearing about, this PM module. So what do what do you want me to do? So that's when they told me to reach out to other, segments and see what are they using? What are you guys using? So I did that. I reached out to my counterparts in Europe, around the world, and come up with 5 different softwares. And actually, MaintainX was not one of them. I'm sorry to say that, but
Yeah.
uh, I actually got that after the fact when somebody actually mentioned it to me. They said, "Hey, have you heard of MaintainX?" And I said, "No, what are you talking about?" And that's like I said, I was reviewing these other softwares, so that's when I got introduced to that. And it was actually somebody that had already used MaintainX, and they were telling me just how great it was. So, so I threw it into that same file where I was working through these different softwares. And I just found it to be the most easy, the most intuitive, that I knew that my mechanics would not have any issue or problem being able to use this. So, and after I did my review, I went back and I talked with my management and I said, hey, I think this is the one. I said, and one of the key factors that I'll call out in that is the SAP part that you guys can do with the integration of SAP. Out of MaintainX into SAP. So that was another one. I said, okay, well, that's a plus plus. So, I explained that to my manager and he said, hey, look, let's go with this. Let's do a trial. Let's see how it goes and see how it works. And when I started sharing this with him, as we started marching along and we're creating these work orders and we're getting feedback and I'm able to share that with him, that's when he said, hey, this is the one. Let's go with it. So
That's
after the trial, that's just kind of where we got to where we were at. And then, like I said, I've rolled it out into my Juarez plant. They're fully operational. They're using it now. And now I have Poland and a plant in Jebray that are very interested in moving to MaintainX. So the word
yeah,
is actually getting out.
that's great. And is leadership been paying attention to the system itself? Are you seeing that there are more recipients of reports or that are coming out of that system? Are they noticing what would be the indications that things are successful versus not at the moment? What are some of those like signals that they're looking for? Are they just hoping you're happy and you're like, okay, if he's got a system that's helping him do his job, let's keep running with that.
I think it's just the overall improvement that I think the entire site has seen, and that's from at all levels. I don't think it's just just what management thinks. I think everybody sees it. Out on the floor, it's just so everybody knows what system we're operating on, and they see the guys, they see them using it, they see them scanning QR codes and doing things that they never saw before. And I think it automatically, and this is for all you managers out there, it automatically puts a sense of accountability into your guys.
Mhm.
they know that, hey, this, and they're just more accountable. I could see it. I could see the transformation in my team.
Yeah.
Before, it might be, yeah, we'd like to get you to look at this, but yeah, there's nothing really holding the clock on me to say, how long has this been open? Where is it in progress? Is it on hold? And now they know that's there. And so it makes the team so much more accountable. And I think everybody sees that.
There's a lot of truth to the saying light sanitizes, right? Helps helps clear things up. So one other question here I'll jump on, and then I know we're coming up on time, but this is another one on from Claudio on those IMM machines you mentioned, cycle time. Do you record this from machine production monitoring, or do you have a relay that's triggered during auto and semi-auto function? And do you program upper and lower control limits to ensure validated parameters are obtained and displayed?
Yes, it is through a relay. So you can let them know that what it is, if we're just looking at the true cycle time. There is different ways you can set it up. You can actually set it up end of cycle, beginning of cycle. It depends on how you want to capture it. You can do it full cycle time on, or when I see it off. But it's just switching of a relay. So you can very basically just go into your system and just find whatever input or output that you need that will give you that true, I was on X amount of seconds and now I'm off. Anywhere you can find that in your system, you'll be able to adapt this to it to get the full cycle time. Maybe that answered his question.
Awesome. I think so. It's that's a little bit above my pay grade, to be honest. So I trust your answer was right
I
or
can't
helpful.
I can't clarify to him too. If he has a multi-use machine that has a lot of different cycle times,
Yeah.
then what you have to do is just tie that in the system to a part number, and then
Okay.
you just put that associated cycle time for that particular part.
That's awesome. I know we're coming up here on time. I want to go ahead and thank everyone so much for all your questions, all your engagement on the participant side. Uh, give an extra special thank you here to Mike for joining us in your time today. That was really great. I hope everyone had a chance to learn a lot. I know I did. One thing I want to call out here as well before we head out, if you haven't seen MaintainX's community, definitely go in here and check it out. A lot of the great questions I'm seeing in the chat are really perfect fits for the community. So definitely take a look at that if you haven't already. And then that said, thank you all so much. This recording will be shared out again by November 18th. So if you missed any part of it or you want to revisit it, it'll be available for you. Again, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for my MaintainX team who were helping answer questions on the chat and everyone who helped set this and organize this up. Couldn't have done it without all of you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks so much, y'all.